Right then, guys, you're here with Tom again from PT Masterminds, and welcome to the 10th episode of Knowledge Bombs. Now, this is the show where each of my guests has just 7 minutes to drop some serious knowledge bombs to help you get more leads, close more sales, and create the business and lifestyle that you really, really want. So today's guest is Mr. Nick Peall. Now, I've been following Nick's work for years, and it's kind of become pretty obvious to me that he's a ninja when it comes to Facebook ads and webinars. And I think his biggest weekend was like 300K just from one webinar.
Yep.
But he's also a coach, public speaker, serial entrepreneur. He's got a crazy background, and we're not going to dig into all that today. But listen, I'm super pumped to have you on the show, Nick. How's it going today, man?
Good, man. Thanks for having me and for all your patience, because as you know, it's taken us a bit of coordinating to get to this point. But I'm glad to be here, mate. So you've got my full attention.
Wicked, Nick. Yeah, I've been trying to get you on for a few months now, and for good reason. We've got some good stuff to dig into today. We're going to focus on webinars. Now, you know the format. It's 7 minutes. I'm going to start the clock in just a second, and we're just going to start into figuring out why webinars are important, a few strategies that people can implement when they run their own. So 7 minutes on the clock, Nick. Let's go. So for people out there who are thinking about doing webinars, maybe they've tried one or two and they've failed miserably. What's so important about a webinar, and why should people be doing them right now?
Okay, I think webinars are important in the context of online marketing purely because they convert your traffic into sales better than any other method, and that's the sole reason why I originally got into them, because everyone was talking about, and like this is back in 2011 for me, when I started webinars, but I'd been listening to people talking about webinars for probably 2 years at that point, and the whole concept and the method of a webinar just didn't interest me whatsoever. It got my attention because, I heard of the conversion ratios that others were doing, and if you work in online marketing, you know all of the percentages and all the numbers, and usually we work in decimal fractions or single-digit conversion ratios, and from the start I was hearing things about webinars where it was consistently 10, 20, 30%. And that's not extreme examples. Again, that's typical. And because I was used to, at that point making money off a conversion ratio of anywhere from 0.5% to 5%, which is pretty good, I got into that stuff. And yeah, so it's the conversion ratio. That's really all it comes down to. It is more effective and more efficient than any other method I personally know of. And so that should help people understand why to get into it, but I would also like to give a message of warning that webinars aren't easy, and it's not one of these push button shiny object get rich overnight type things. You actually have to face a lot of things within yourself before you can get on a webinar, and for example, if you're not into public speaking, or you're not very articulate and you don't know how to communicate things, then you probably won't do well on a webinar, because it's really about presenting. It's got absolutely nothing to do with the technology. That means nothing. It's that people have the opportunity to hear you or to see you or to experience you, but with a standard sales page with just a bunch of text and some photos. There's nothing they can't feel anything, they can't intuit anything from that. So I think that's a big reason why webinars convert so well.
Okay, interesting. So webinars actually have a higher conversion rate from your leads, converting leads into customers, and the whole fact that you do need to have an understanding of public speaking, you need to be confident, because it is just a medium to get across essentially a live public talk with some slides, right?
Exactly. So, again, I can only speak about the context of my industry, which is online business, online marketing, and in the internet marketing industry, also known as the get-rich-quick industry, you'll notice that since day dot, all of the gurus, meaning all of the leaders, all of the most successful people in that industry, they all use webinars as their main monetization method. They have different methods, don't get me wrong, but their main source of revenue comes from webinars.
Interesting, Nick. Interesting. So listen, what are some of the key strategies that people must be covering in the webinars? Like, what are the main points that are going to make someone's webinar a success or not?
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, it's a big subject, but to keep things concise, as we're doing today, I think the first and most important thing is to identify a problem and solution before you get on the webinar, and identify, don't guess, I mean actually understand what it is, and then create content around that problem solution formula. There's probably many different ways you can construct a webinar. Just from experience and testing, we know that that's gets the best result, that gets the best traction, best attention levels. So really identifying that, and then once you understand really what your audience wants, that's what it's about. Once you understand their problem and the solution they're looking for, then you can go about creating a webinar presentation that delivers bite-sized chunks of actionable, education, training that leads to that solution. So that's really important. And to make a comparison, what most people are doing with webinars is that it's almost like show and tell. They think, oh, if I sit here and put together a bunch of statistics that I've pulled out of, Google or some website, and they think, oh, I'll just bombard people with statistics and I'll use maths to, and logic to convince them, and then they'll buy. And that is not true, because I've only ever done one of those particular types of webinars in my life, which was my first one before I understood anything about this stuff. And coincidentally, it was also my worst webinar ever, where I only made one sale in an environment where I should have made many, many sales, but I only made one sale. So my first failure was a beautiful thing, because it taught me that I had no idea what the method was, what the system was, how things work, and so then based upon that, I went out and I learned, and I was I was seeking advice, and I just absorbed everything I could, and then I'd go out and action it, and my results changed pretty quickly. I went from one sale, which was less than $1,000 turnover, to my second webinar, which was about $60,000 turnover, and that was in the same week. But it's all based upon me going out, learning. Well, first identifying I don't know what I'm doing. The second is seeking out advice from people that do know what they're doing, and then basically investing in methods and systems that work. Because I guarantee you, if you've never done a webinar and you think you can just concoct it off the top of your head, you'll learn the hard way, like I did, that doesn't work. But there is a method, and there's a system and a format to follow, and I was lucky enough to find that after my first failure.
Interesting, Nick. So we really need to be focusing on finding a problem in your marketplace and finding a solution, and using that webinar to kind of bridge the gap, talk to people about the problem, and then have your product, your service as a solution, but also to find some sort of structure, some sort of proven structure that's actually going to help you get there effectively. Because there's no point in just creating slide after slide of statistics, strategies with no particular order, no emotion involved. That's going to help people realize the pain that they're in, and take them closer to a solution, your solution, right?
Yes, yeah, and there's a few other little bits and pieces along the way. I call, like some people talk about scripting. I've never scripted a webinar in my life, but I've storyboarded every single one I've ever done. So the difference there is, if you're scripting something, it's like a speech, and you're trying to figure out the words that you're going to say, verbatim. And I don't do that in my public speaking at all. I don't do that in webinars. So what I do is I create a storyboard, which is, if anyone's in the filmmaking industry or the animation industry, they'll be familiar with what a storyboard is. And that's basically how they plan out a movie. And a movie is a story, and a story has a very clearly defined structure, and if you don't understand that structure, I guarantee you'll get it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's why certain people are really good at making Hollywood movies, for example, and most people, you know, would never get close to that, or even if they tried, they'd fail because they don't know the formula. And again, it's about the formula.
Yeah, right. Interesting, Nick. So that brings us up a little bit over our 7 minutes, and there's really interesting stuff that we've dug into there, Nick. Now, obviously, there's loads to cover right now about webinars, but we just don't have the time. So are there any links, any resources that you could send people to find out more about crafting a killer webinar that's actually going to generate sales?
Yeah, look, I've got an entire program on this that basically takes people from either a basic level, meaning they've never done webinars before, and they can learn what it takes, you know, before you even get started to delivering and implementing your first one. And then there's also an advanced module for people, you know, that have been doing webinars for a few years and, you know, want to go from making 5 or 10 grand to, you know, making 50 or 100 grand and really, you know, going up to that next level, which is often another 0 or maybe 2 more zeros on the end of their numbers. So I cater for both of those. But basically, if you go to my website, which is nickpeall.com, nickpeall.com, you'll see many things on that site. But at the top, you'll see a link to watch a webinar replay of mine, which actually explains how I generated that 300 grand on a webinar. But if you want to check out my training program, it's actually on the bottom in the footer of my website. You'll see a link there which goes to my course, which is called the Webinar Masterclass.
Okay, Nick, brilliant. I'll include the links below this video. And cheers for joining us today, Nick. Really appreciate that. We'll catch you soon.
No worries, mate. Hopefully we can spend some more time in the future and elaborate on things.
Definitely, 100%. Cheers, Nick.
Thanks, bro.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Tom here from PT Mastermind. Thanks for tuning in for today's episode of Knowledge Bombs. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you've taken plenty of notes so you can actually implement the strategies that we've laid out today. So if you've liked this video and you want to see more, just hit subscribe below. Or if you want to get on the list to make sure you never miss a knowledge bomb ever again, just click the link down in the bottom left. I'll catch you in the next one.